Imagine a rivalry so intense it defined an era, a clash of titans that would echo through eternity. This isn't just a story of war, it's the tale of two of the greatest leaders in human history, Richard the Lionheart and Saladin, and it all began with a single, broken truce. In the late 12th century, the Holy Land was a powder keg. One arrogant Crusader baron, Reynald of Chatillon, decided to light the fuse. He attacked a peaceful Muslim caravan, shattering the fragile peace and awakening a sleeping giant. That giant was Saladin. He wasn't just a sultan, he was a storm, a unifier of the Muslim world, patiently waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment came at the horns of Hattin. In a masterful display of strategy, Saladin lured the Crusader armies into a barren, waterless wasteland. He set the dry grass ablaze, choking the knights in their heavy armor with smoke and heat. The result was a catastrophe for the Crusaders. Their army was annihilated, and most devastatingly, Saladin captured their most sacred relic, a piece of the true cross. Jerusalem, the prize of the First Crusade, soon fell. The Crusader kingdom was on its knees, gasping its last breath. But from the ashes of this crushing defeat, a new legend was forged. In Europe, news of Jerusalem's fall sent shockwaves. A new crusade was called, and at its head was a man whose name alone inspired both fear and awe. Richard, King of England. They called him the Lionheart. This was the same prince who had once betrayed his own father, King Henry II, to seize the throne. Now he swore a sacred oath to reclaim the holy city. So the stage was set. Two legends, from two different worlds, representing two faiths, were now on a collision course. Their destiny was to be written in the sands of the desert, a divine test to see who was chosen by God and who would be consigned to the footnotes of history. Their first major confrontation was at the fortified city of Acre. The siege had been a brutal 2-year stalemate, but Richard's arrival changed everything. He was a force of nature, even when struck down by a burning fever. So ill he couldn't stand, he commanded his troops from a stretcher. He had his engineers build massive siege engines, including one he nicknamed God's Own Catapult, relentlessly pounding the city's walls. His will was simply unbreakable. Finally, Acre surrendered. The terms were clear. The Muslim garrison would be spared in exchange for a hefty ransom and the return of the true cross. But when Saladin missed the payment deadline, Richard's patience ran out. His response was swift, brutal, and terrifying. He ordered the execution of 2,700 Muslim prisoners in full view of Saladin's army. It was a message written in blood, a declaration that he would stop at nothing to win. Saladin, a man known for his mercy, was forced to reply in kind. He ordered the execution of his Christian prisoners. The war had just become deeply, chillingly personal. What followed was the deadliest chess match of the medieval age, played out across the scorched earth of the Holy Land. The next move was Richard's. He marched his army south along the coast, heading for Jaffa. Saladin shadowed him, relentlessly harassing his column with mounted archers. The Sultan's plan was to lure the disciplined Crusader infantry into breaking ranks, to pick them off piece by piece. His trap was laid near the forest of Arsuf. On September 7th, 1191, the two armies met. Saladin's forces, nearly double the size of Richard's, swarmed the Crusaders. The heat was unbearable, the air thick with arrows. The Knights Hospitaller at the rear of the column were taking heavy casualties, their discipline pushed to the absolute limit. They begged Richard to let them charge, but he held them back, waiting for the perfect moment. But then, The Hospitallers broke formation without orders, charging headlong into the enemy. It could have been a disaster. Saladin's trap was about to spring, but Richard, the master tactician, saw it. He didn't panic. He adapted. He saw an opportunity. With a signal and the blast of 6 trumpets, he unleashed his own secret weapon, the full devastating charge of his elite heavy cavalry. The impact was like a thunderclap. The Lionheart himself was at the forefront, carving a path through the enemy lines. Against all odds, the disciplined Crusader charge shattered Saladin's army, which had believed victory was in its grasp. The Sultan's forces fled the field. The Lionheart had faced Saladin in open battle and won a stunning victory. The myth of Saladin's invincibility was broken, but Saladin was no fool. He learned a valuable lesson at Arsuf. He realized he could not defeat Richard with brute force and pride. So, he changed his strategy. He would fight with patience. He adopted a scorched earth policy, destroying cities, poisoning wells, and burning crops in Richard's path. As the Crusaders marched inland towards Jerusalem, their supply lines stretched thin. Armies starved, men grew sick, and morale plummeted. The desert itself became Saladin's greatest weapon. And yet, in the midst of this brutal conflict, something remarkable began to happen. A mutual respect started to grow between the two leaders. They were enemies, yes, but they were also warriors who recognized greatness in each other. They exchanged letters, not just of threats, but of chivalric compliments. They even sent gifts. When Richard's horse was killed in battle, Saladin famously sent him 2 fresh mounts, saying a king should not have to fight on foot. Saladin was once asked about his great rival, and his reply is legendary. He said, "He is my enemy, but he is also the bravest, most honorable man I know." This wasn't a war between a hero and a villain. It was a war between 2 heroes on opposite sides of a holy conflict. Twice Richard marched his army to within sight of Jerusalem. The golden dome of the city shimmered on the horizon, the ultimate prize just within his grasp. And twice he stopped. He was a brilliant general, and he knew the bitter truth. He could probably take the city, but holding it would be impossible. His army was exhausted, and his supply lines were non-existent. To capture Jerusalem would be a hollow victory, one that would lead to the eventual slaughter of its defenders once he left. With a heavy heart, he turned back. Seeing his enemy retreat, Saladin seized his chance for a final, decisive blow. He launched a surprise attack on the coastal city of Jaffa, a key strategic port for the Crusaders. His forces overwhelmed the small garrison. The city fell. For the Crusaders, all hope seemed lost. But then, a priest who escaped the city found Richard's camp. "The king," he cried. "Richard still lives." The Lionheart, once again ravaged by fever, heard the news. He rose from his sickbed, grabbed his sword, and did the unthinkable. He led a tiny force of knights and crossbowmen, waded ashore from his galley, and charged headfirst into an army of thousands. The Battle of Jaffa is the stuff of legend. It was one man's sheer force of will against impossible odds. Richard fought like a man possessed, a true Lionheart, inspiring his men and terrifying his enemies. And somehow, against all logic, he turned the tide. He drove Saladin's army out of the city and held the beach. It was perhaps his finest hour, a moment that cemented his immortal fame. The final duel between the 2 armies was not one of swords, but of mutual exhaustion and respect. Their destinies were now intertwined by honor. In a final, incredible gesture of chivalry, when Richard fell gravely ill once more, Saladin sent him fresh fruit, snow from the mountains to cool his fever, and even his own personal physician. He wanted his rival to recover, to be able to conclude the war with honor, not to die of sickness. They had fought as bitter enemies, but they would part as equals. On September 2nd, 1192, they signed the Treaty of Jaffa. The Third Crusade was over. Jerusalem would remain under Muslim control, but its gates would be open to unarmed Christian pilgrims, allowing them to visit their holy sites in peace. It was a compromise born from respect. Richard the Lionheart, his mission incomplete, but his legend secured, sailed for home, only to face shipwreck, capture, and betrayal in Europe. He would never see England again for long. Saladin, the defender of his faith and unifier of his people, was weary of war. He had achieved his life's goal. He died just a few months later, his vast personal wealth given away to the poor. His name became immortal in the Muslim world and beyond. Their rivalry became one of the most epic in history, not just for the battles they fought, but for the humanity they showed. It's a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, in the heart of war, respect can outlive victory, and honor can be the greatest prize of all. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another story from history. See you next time.